So for step 16, the front axle, well, we need to grab the hubs. We've got some ball connectors to put on. We've got some ball bearings to put in. There's pins to hold everything together. And then we're going to install them into these hub pieces, which will eventually attach to the chassis. And there's a whole bunch of parts actually for this. So you can see there are all of the screws and pieces we need, and here are all of the plastic pieces we need, the hubs and everything else. So I'll set this up and we'll put it together. So let's work on the ball connector again first. So you can see, and again, if you got these, took them off the parts tree and then can't figure out which one's which, you want to grab the one that's sort of flat, because you notice how there's a huge dip on one side. The flat is what we need for this side. So if you take one of these BB5s, there's a B11, which were these small plastic pieces that you had to cut off of the parts tree. Well, that's going to go into there first and then go into the end hole, just like that. So that means we're going to grab our box wrench again, same idea, stick that in there and make sure I've got this right. Yes, we're going to put that in there, and again use the box wrench to kind of guide it in the direction it needs to go. It looks correct, so I can screw it all the way in. Yes. We're getting there. Looks about right. Okay, it's on all the way. So ultimately that is what it's going to end up looking like. So what do we do next? Well, we've got to put our ball bearings into here. So we'll put one in there. And we'll put one down there. And in fact, it's hard to get your finger in there, so I just use the box wrench to push it in. I probably need to put a little bit more pressure. There we go. So now the bearings are inside there. And again, because I'm using ball bearings, I'm not going to grease these up. So I can push that in there, just like that. And we'll use one of these pins and put that in there. Now these are temporary because we're going to put in the piece that actually is going to attach to the hub for the wheel. But for now, that's how that's going to look. So there's your inside. There's your axle. So we'll do the same thing on the other side just to get this part finished. Grab the little piece there, slide that onto your ball connector. Again, you want the flat, you don't want it that way, you want it this way, and it's going to go up and into that end hole. So I'll grab the box wrench and we'll turn. Let's make sure we've got that going in correctly. It's not quite. We've got to level it out a bit. It's looking a bit more correct. Yes. Okay, so we'll screw this in all the way, and when you get to the end, just stop. You don't want to strip anything out. Now it should, once you get to the end, it actually should be pretty easy to tell. But it's different adding a plastic piece. You don't see that very often. I think we're almost there. There. So there we go. There is your ball connector with the plastic piece. Just allows it to stick out a little bit more than usual. So now that that part is done, same idea. We need to put a ball bearing down here, which I'll use my box wrench to help get it in there. There we go. It's nicely seated down there. And then we'll put the other one right like that. There we go. So there's our bearings in place. And again, we're going to take our axle, slide that through, and we're going to put this pin through there. And again, that's a temporary measure because we'll change that out once we have these installed on the chassis. So those are the two parts done for the front axles, and they would be sitting just like that. So that step is done. So now it's a matter of doing the next bit. Now you'll notice, same idea, that these two hubs look a little different. One side is completely flat, one side has this area that's jutting out. Well, you can tell that based on the design, we're going to see how it's a circle, and this one is sort of a different design. See how it goes up and is raised, whereas this is just a flat area that has the big circle. Well, you can tell that that is what's needed on this side. So that's how it's going to go. So we're going to grab this one. That's going to connect there. And you can see that it's being connected with two kingpins. Now, before I do that, what I do want to see here is it looks like... No, we'll put this one on first or not. Let's just see here. This is a whole different ball game. It looks like that is going to attach there when this is done. Can I do it after the fact? Yes, I think so. Well, you know what? I'm going to go back to the idea of putting the kingpins in first. So let's put the kingpin into the axle. And again, it's sort of trying to balance this out because you want to make sure that they're going in evenly. There we go. Yeah. Okay. So let's continue to screw this in. Make sure that actually is going in properly. Same thing on the other side. That needs to be attached a little bit or screwed in a little further. There we go. So there we go. So once you have the kingpins in, we're now left with this next little bit where we need to grab this A6 piece, which you can see the screw is going to go in from the other side, and it's going to go into the top hole, and we've got a ball connector on the other side. Now, from what I can see, when this goes in, it should sit just like that on this piece. But I've noticed that you need to screw this in to the hole because it actually is a little wider than the hole itself. So technically, you're screwing this in to the other side. Seems mostly correct. I think it might be a little off balance here. We got to loosen it off a bit here. Make sure it's going to go in to the hole level. There we go. And we got to screw this all the way in. And when it gets to the other side, we're going to be screwing it into that ball connector. It's an interesting design. I'm sure there's a reason for it. I just don't know what that is right now. So you can see it's almost coming out to the end, but you can see that it will end up fitting just like that. It's a pretty tight fit. Wonder if I can attach the ball connector yet, and then we can use that to help screw everything in. Maybe. Again, it's kind of an interesting design. Can I hold that and use this at the same time? Not really. Well, it would appear that I am not going to do it that way. We're still going to hold it and screw this in as far as we can go. Okay, so there you go. That's all the way in. So now we can take our ball connector and tighten that up. Interesting design. So ultimately that's what it's going to look like. Interesting, because you can see how that sort of fits in just right. Okay, well, there we go. So we need to work on the other side now. So if we do the same thing, you can see that if we turn this around, you can see this is sort of the rounded edge. We got the circle at this side. So that means that we're going to attach it that way, and we've got to get our kingpins in, which is still the easier thing to do first. So let's make sure that goes in, and I'm going to screw it in just a little bit for now. We'll take the other kingpin. Again, same idea. Let's just get it started. Into the hole. Yes, there we go. Okay, so now we just got to make sure that that is going in level. Yes, that looks more correct. So I'll start screwing this one in. And I'll turn it around and we'll screw this one in a bit. Which looks about right. So I'll turn this around, screw this one in. And again, let's screw this one in all the way. There we go. So there are the kingpins in place. So now what do we have to do? Well, it was the same idea. We've got to grab this piece here. We've got the screw that's going to go in from the other side, and it's going to fit into that top hole. Now, it's a bit of a weird thing because those screws seem a little hard to put in because you're screwing into essentially nothing to begin with because they're slightly larger than the hole itself, but it looks about right this time. So I'll try and hold this as tight as I can, and we'll screw this in all the way. Not much in the way you can in terms of being able to hold it, but let's see what we can do here. Yeah, it's going in pretty level. Yep. It's a bit awkward. But we're getting there. Just got to make sure you're holding it so that you've got enough back pressure so that you're not lifting the screwdriver out of the head, which would end up stripping things. Okay. Yep. Okay. Bit more pressure there. Okay, it's in place. There we go. So there's the screw in place for that. So what's left is we screw in this ball connector, and I guess we'll use the box wrench just to make sure it's a little tight. There we go. And there we go. So that's ultimately what it's going to look like. So both hubs and axles are complete. Interesting design. So that means step 16 is complete. So now we're going to move on to step 17 and attach the front axles.